Hi, my name's Andy Schofield, and I'm one of the co-organizers of Columbus Web Group. Today, we are starting a series called Where Are They Now? And I'm here with Calvin Cooper. Calvin, where are you at?
Thanks so much for having me. Has it really been 5 years? So much has happened.
Longer than that.
Oh, yeah. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Rove, and we are expanding access and opportunity for everyone to invest in real estate. I believe that democracy is stronger when everyone has ownership. And what better place to start when you're thinking about wealth creation than real estate, the largest asset class in the world. And so I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to invest in real estate, period.
So back in 2015, you said the two most important qualities of a new entrepreneur were to be dumb and have no money. Do you still believe those are important today? And if you had to replace them with two other traits, what would they be?
I'd say I kind of want to flip it on its head and take it in a different direction. I think we should be curious and have love for the problem you're solving. It's really just about love and curiosity.
And since you've given your last talk, you had significant career growth. How did that curiosity play into your career growth?
Yeah, I'm just always following the love, man. I love venture. I love research and turning data into insights. And one of the things that really drew me to the space was being able to take action and back other people who are passionate about solving problems. And so I was enjoying being a venture capitalist, getting wind behind myself, just getting the vote to become a partner in a venture fund, which is like a dream come true to me. But I stumbled upon a problem that I had more passion for. It was really about, I wanted to own a stake in the place that I called home. I looked at my partner, Ian, and we were talking about, should we buy a condo? And it just didn't make sense to me. And as a VC, I couldn't afford the new 1-bedroom condos in our neighborhoods, which is just crazy to me because growing up, my mom had to scrape money together to buy a home, and she lost her house in the last recession. And then it took her years to get back to where she's at now as a homeowner. And I think about my grandmother. Her condo's still underwater. So I don't have this illusion that home ownership is like the end all be all. In fact, many millennials don't believe that. 18% of us don't plan on ever buying a home. And so where we're at in our life journey, I believe we should be able to have ownership at any point in that journey. And so I just couldn't take no for an answer. Why can't I own a stake in this apartment building that I live in? Why can't I own a piece of the property across the street, the places that we patron and love? And so I think that we need more options. We need more access and opportunity for everyone to own. And I just got obsessed with it. And so the changes that happen in my career usually happen because of that passion, following a problem, not taking no for an answer. And then that just inspires other people. And I find myself to be so fortunate to meet people like Scott Sumi, who Kevin Mack introduced me to, but he's our chief technology officer. And he was at IBM at the time, but he just got wrapped up in solving this problem with me. And Jonathan Nutt, who's a mutual friend of ours, and he was at IBM as well, and small world. And he got caught up in this, and Jonathan Slimp. And I had a friend, that introduced me to him, and he happened to be working as a consultant for one of the portfolio companies that I was on the board of. And we just got together and started jamming on this. And I did not want to start a company at all, but, I met Brett Kaufman, and within a few minutes of sitting down with him, much like this, he said, let me stop you here. It was like in 5 minutes. He's like, so I'll tell you what, I'll invest in your company. You can do that here with us, but you got to quit your job and be the CEO. And I was like, dang, what? I got to be the CEO. Why don't we just I've got the best people who can co-found this. We'll find a CEO. He's like, no, man, you love this too much. You've got to be the CEO. And it took me about a day to sleep on it and just be honest with myself. I was already doing the job, but, hadn't yet made the decision to realize that I had become a CEO of a company. And so we took that leap, and that's what moved my career forward into this space.
Yeah, I think anytime someone talks about becoming a CEO, that's a pretty big decision. How easy was it being passionate about the idea that you had?
I think it's an easy decision if you're doing it for the right reasons. you kind of are the CEO and then you have the title, like not the other way around. Too many people clout chase and they're like, I want to be a CEO. It's like, of what? For why? Like, you can build things. You can have freedom following your passion in whatever seat you're in. It doesn't matter what the title is. And so I just think that if you want something in life, follow the love, and whatever title follows that will give you the freedom and experience you want to have.
So earlier we talked a bit about curiosity. But what piece of advice from your last talk do you think would be most helpful for the position you're in currently?
I think it's the same thing that I started with. I just believe it even more so now, that you have to follow passion. But I use the word love because I just feel like it's more moving. It's deeper than that. And so I believe that you should focus on what you love. Follow your why. Everything starts with that. And that, if you follow that in life, you'll never go wrong. And you can apply that to everything. Your personal life, your career, heck, they just blend together even.
So when you talk about your personal life and your career blending together, a lot of people talk about work-life balance being incredibly important. How do you find balance, or perhaps don't find balance, when you love what you're doing?
The word balance implies that they're separate. It's like two things on a scale at tension, friction, working against each other, offsetting each other. You have more of one, you're taking from the other. So I don't really like the term work-life balance. I believe in work-life harmony.
So when we think about work-life harmony and pursuing your passions and love for what you're doing, how has that helped you overcome any stigmas or barriers to get where you're at?
People can feel your energy. They're moved by it. That's why I don't think I've ever gotten a job that I applied for. Every opportunity I've ever had has been somebody feeling the love for whatever I'm pursuing and saying, you know what? Well, why don't you come work here? Heck, my first job at Kroger is like, why don't you come? Are you applying? I just showed up with my brother who was applying, and I'm just talking in the background. And I'm like, hey, why don't you apply for a job here? And so we both got the job. Or when I got a job in the Senate working for State Senator Ray Miller, one of the best legislators, he saw legislation as a craft. And we don't have enough of that these days. But I met him at a luncheon and just introduced myself and asked him. I was just curious. I just wanted to grab lunch. I was a college student. I had business cards. I don't even know why. Just had my number and my capital email address on it. I said, here's my card. I just heard you speak. I'd love to grab lunch with you sometime. I just want to learn from you. And you said you lived in Bexley. I go to school right down the street. Can we grab lunch sometime? And he said, looked at me, stared me up and down, pulled out a business card and said, I'm Ray Miller, and would you like to come be a page in my office? And I'm like, what's a page? That's how I got that job. That's how I became a VC when I met Rich Langdale. It's how I raised capital. Heck, every time I've succeeded, it's because somebody felt the love for what I was doing and they were moved by it and they wanted to help.
So when I hear you talk about love and really being passionate about something, that helps you overcome things. But what is really the component when you love something that really helps you drive through a problem that you're facing?
It's everything. No matter what you do, it's going to be hard. But if you love it, you love the hard things. If you're a bodybuilder, you're going to love working out. If you're somebody who just loves running and you're a marathon runner, it's hard, it's terrible. But you're going to get out, you're going to run in the cold, you're going to run in the rain. In and of itself, being in the freezing cold isn't something you love. You love everything, the whole process. And so too many people get caught up in like the title of something or the label of something or the industry or sector or what people think of them. And they don't love the actual process. You got to love the hard parts of it. And you can ask anybody in pursuing anything with excellence. From the outside in, there's things that seem crazy that you will put yourself through to achieve a goal to other people who don't love it. And so you know you love a thing when you're putting yourself through some pretty terrible challenges and overcoming them to achieve a goal. And whatever that is, you should do more of that.
When you think about that, what advice would you give to someone who's having trouble with they may be working on something, but they're having trouble overcoming that, and maybe they don't really know whether they found that love for their thing yet.
Just look for what brings you energy. And I would say just ask yourself why questions and follow the answers wherever it may lead you. And sometimes that means you have to change your whole life. And the hardest part for me, switching from being a VC to being an entrepreneur, wasn't that I knew I loved this problem. It was that I didn't want to let my team down. I loved the people I was pursuing venture with. I loved the entrepreneurs that I had led investments into. I was on a few boards. And the thing that was holding me back was that I didn't want to let other people down. And so sometimes when you follow your love, you will be misunderstood. Some people might mischaracterize what you're doing. You might lose some friends. You're going to put yourself through pain. Heck, you might leave a cushy job and run out of runway, and then a month later raise money. You might have all kinds of things happen that you wouldn't want to sign up for, And so too often people avoid following love for life because they're afraid of going through the pain and running through the roar to have the life that's worth living. And so it's not a one-time thing. It's over and over again. You have to ask yourself, why are you doing a thing? And break that autopilot that you're living. And you've got to wake up. And people often know, they know when they're not in the right space. They're just afraid of what it takes to get out of that autopilot mode because it's hard.
So what would you tell someone who knows they're not in the right space, but doesn't want to break that autopilot because they may have the right job, they may have everything going but they know deep down that it's needed to break out?
Wake up. It's binary. It's either you're going to complain about, there's nothing to complain about then. Just embrace the mediocre or embrace the excellent and be willing to take the risk and life is struggle. And so it's going to be a struggle whether you do the safe thing or the risky thing. And you might as well do the thing that brings you energy. You'll be a whole lot happier. And you could fail doing the safe bet that people expect you to do in life, or you could fail doing the thing you love. Life is struggle. And so you might as well struggle in a fun way, doing the things you want to do, being free, being your whole weird self, as opposed to struggling to keep up with other people's expectations. Either way, it's risky.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. Life is risky either way.
I think it's more risky not being your whole authentic self.
So thinking back earlier to one of your responses, it sounds like your experience as a millennial really impacted your housing experience and kind of drove the mission it wrote.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. The millennial generation has $0 in net real estate wealth. Zero. That really pisses me off, to be honest. And my great grandmother would be rolling in her grave. Robin Weaver, she was a black woman in the 60s owning real estate, and to know that her great grandson didn't own $1 of real estate would just really irk her. And I thought about that. But buying a home wasn't right for me. Peter Thiel talks about this in his book, 0 to 1, like what contrarian viewpoint do you have? And one that I have is that the housing affordability crisis is rampant. It is pervasive in every major city. A lot of people on the coast might believe that living in Columbus is so affordable. Heck, I would hear people who are homeowners, who are employers, who would be like, oh yeah, it's so affordable here, and that's why people make less. And it's like, do you realize that the income to rent ratio in Columbus is about what it is in San Francisco for a college graduate? It's about the same. And it's crazy that so many people are rent burdened, meaning that we're spending over a third of our income in rent with no ability to accumulate wealth, no ability to buy our first home. And it's gotten worse in the pandemic. There's been trillions of dollars in new wealth created for homeowners. The prices of a home continues to rise, putting it further out of reach for first-time home buyers. We are a generation getting left behind, and the cornerstone of wealth creation is home ownership. So we've got to do something about that. That's why people are talking about going from 2 options, renting and owning, to having many options, a more human experience, one where you can own across your whole life's journey in different ways that work for you, with different gradients and dials for risk and reward. And so thinking about that and the lack of access is what drove me to start the company and change my life. And I'm so proud to now be doing that. Our vision for the world is that in 10 years, we are going to create 10 million new real estate investors who are going to own $10 billion in real estate equity. That's $10 billion in real estate equity for the people over 10 years and maybe sooner.
I mean, that's incredible. That's something that, I think a lot of people who are renting never would have thought was even possible.
It is now. I cried when we put it out, really, because it's just, I felt like now that we know it's possible, that genie's never going back in the bottle. And there are other people doing amazing things in this market right now, all at one time. I'm moved by it. I believe that we are going to have a dynamic market here the next 12 to 24 months, one where so many various opportunities to own real estate are about to emerge. The whole game is going to be different this decade. This is the decade for ownership. This is the decade where our generation flips finance on its head, and that's coming for the public equity markets, that's coming for the currency markets, and that is coming for the real estate market. I can't wait. I get so excited. I almost stood up talking about that.
Well, that's really interesting to me. You talk about a lot of different things shifting. What other changes might be coming to the real estate market besides fractional ownership?
Oh, the whole experience is going to change. Imagine if you could choose your own journey with varying degrees of ownership and commitment. That would just be amazing. The 30-year mortgage is going away. It's not going to be the only option for people. The word mortgage in Old French means death pledge.
I had no idea.
It's crazy. I didn't either. And I was like, wow, that sounds so morbid. Like, it's got to go, obviously, with a name like that. And so everything's going to change. Ray, who in our generation anticipates buying a home and living in it from the time they're like 25 till the time they're like 65? Like, nobody's doing that. You're living in a apartment. You're moving around. You want to live, work, and play in a neighborhood, but maybe you get married. Then maybe you have your first kids, and then you might expand as your family unit expands. But that's not going to be your forever home either. You might raise a few kids in that home, and then when they all grow up and leave the house and you're an empty nester, you'll downsize again. And that's not the home that you're going to age in place in. That's just your empty nester transition home. And then the next home is going to be one that you might retire in, and then you might age in place somewhere else. And so why aren't there financial products that meet people where they are all across that housing journey? And so the first step is to really disrupt real estate finance and open up access and opportunity for everyone to invest in it. Because then you really have changed the capital market. And then you can start to change the whole experience around real estate.
So you've mentioned throughout this interview that you believe everyone should have a stake or share in things. Do you view that as a political statement?
It's a philosophy. It's one as old as civilization. Aristotle talked about property rights and how important it is, but that promoting property rights would also promote common use. That philosophy has been carried throughout the ages. James Harrington talked about it. John Locke talked about life, liberty, and estate. A concept that Thomas Jefferson, one of our constitutional framers, expanded upon in the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so this idea that we have stakeholders, that a firm should support more than just shareholders, is an idea that's built on a very old philosophy. And in fact, it's something that our country often forgets. John Adams, constitutional framer, founding father of America, second U.S. president, specifically wrote about and talked about that in order to preserve equal liberty on the side of public virtue, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in order to preserve liberty on the side of public virtue, we need to expand access for everyone to own real estate. He specifically said that. And so our democracy depends on everybody having a stake and having ownership. Therefore, our society depends on it. Everything depends on it. We are in a mutual symbiotic relationship. And so we have to make this happen.
So it's interesting that all the way back in the early days of the country that was being talked about, why now? Why has Rove not occurred before now?
We lost our way at some point. At some point in the late 20th century, we got this idea and started preaching it in business schools that the corporation exists to maximize shareholder value. And that became a march. And we started to measure the success of a country by its GDP and not its happiness or the ability to deliver a good standard of living. We've really lost our way. And we're returning to our roots with this. The Business Roundtable, leading group of the biggest corporations in the world, put out a statement 2 years ago on the purpose of a corporation, where they said that it exists to maximize stakeholder value. That was a big deal 2 years ago, and it was perfectly timed. And so we are returning to that mindset that we have to maximize stakeholder value. But that is a very old concept. And at some point, we lost our way. Virtue is the harmony between liberty and responsibility. And so we need to maximize those two. It's more of an optimization formula. Because of our two-party system, so often we think about them as a balance or on two ends of the spectrum instead of as a graph with a point that maximizes at a sweet spot, right in the middle.
So when you think about current leaders in today and you think about where we were when the beginning of the country, what advice would you give to current leaders to make the world a better place?
Meditate and read the Tao Te Ching.
Short and simple.
Yeah, because it's really simple. Like, I believe leadership is just letting go and being a vessel for the universe to express itself. And if you're really paying attention, you know what the universe needs you to do. And just let go and go with that flow. Easier said than done. The universe is going to express itself until it gets what it wants. And so either we're going to be that vessel to bring stakeholder capitalism to real estate, or somebody else will, but more likely many people will. I intentionally, in our Slack channels, in our research, we don't have competitors. We have market participants because I want them to be successful too. I really believe that. And anytime I have a competitive thought, I remind myself that I'm a vessel for the universe to get what it needs, which is stakeholder capitalism right now, which is more love and light in the world right now. And if you think about it and you look at any successful market, you will notice that there are multiple companies in that space, whether it's search, whether it's the PC, whether it's televisions, cars, and the market will get what it needs. And you just got to be a vessel for it to express itself. And you can do that and exist with a whole ecosystem of other participants, suppliers. And if you lean into your authentic self, you're going to create a different experience, and that will resonate with people in the market, in the world, in a different way. So my advice is simple. It's meditate, read the Tao Te Ching, and be a vessel for the universe to express itself. And people who do, you can do that for good or evil. And so I think you should just do that for the good and bring more love and light into the world.
Yeah, I think that the market participant, looking at it that way is, versus a competitor, is a pretty unique viewpoint.
I just believe that they're educating the market. And just think about any market that has been created. It required the labor and love of multiple people coming at it from different angles and experiences. Some people love Android. Some people love iOS. And both exist in a great way. It's beautiful. Why not? If you really believe that what you want to do needs to happen, then why does it matter if you do it?
So you just talked about a couple of things that you that kind of influence you, but have there been any individuals that have influenced you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything I know comes from somebody, whether that's an old sage or a stoic or a book. I love Ryan Holiday's books because he really helps synthesize and distill Stoic philosophy for the modern reader. I love his work. He's a mentor of mine and doesn't even know it. And there are many others like Lao Tzu or Aristotle or many, many other people. And then there are people who I've met along the way who just, for whatever reason, they just wanted to pay it forward and just pulled me into their world and decided to pull me into their office and sit me down and teach me what they knew, whether that was Miller, Senator Ray Miller, Darrell Peel at the Supplier Development Council, Slingdale as a VC, heck, Tim Draper, who took a meeting with me, Illuminary VC, Chris Olson, Brett Kaufman, Scott Sumi, Kevin Mack. I'm so lucky, man. I learn every day. People give me wisdom. So there are too many to name. And I'm just fortunate to have people that have opened their world to me. And then I just got to be a sponge and then try to apply what I learned in a new way.
I think that really goes along with your thoughts on putting love into the world and putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you ask for advice or you're just curious, people are more likely to open up because they're passionate and curious about something. There's so many people in the world looking to take. And so if you're looking to just give, people are like, great, another giver. I mean, you've been in a room full of people before, and most people who come by you want something, whether that's validation, a deal, an investment. They want somebody to listen to them. They all want something. We all want something. And so if you're just willing to give, oftentimes you'll be a recipient of amazing things.
Do you know what your ultimate goal looks like?
To inspire. And I want to do that through this work. And I believe that there's this force in the universe that's looking to inspire. It's just a spark, like the Big Bang. It's looking to inspire light. And there's a force in the world looking to extinguish it. And I want to be on the side of inspiring. I think every moment is an opportunity to inspire. So I don't always live up to that, but that's what I aspire to do. And I aspire to be a virtuous person. I want to be, and I believe in Aristotle's golden mean, and Aristotelian virtue, ethics. And so when I die, I would like to look across my hero's journey and say, wow, I ended up a good man and lived a virtuous life. And that's a journey. So I aspire to be that. And that's my goal. I'm a philosopher that happens to do different things. Right now, I'm a CEO, and tomorrow that might be something else.
I mean, for many people, becoming a CEO is their ultimate goal. And for you, it was something that was sort of thrust upon you. I mean, did you ever envision becoming a CEO?
I envision being a lot of things. I mean, yeah. I envisioned doing a lot of things. I envisioned myself just expressing philosophy through different seats. Ray Miller said one time to me, he's like, he came in his office, crossed his legs, and he's like, and he's a politician that only left because he was term limited, old school. And he's just got a lot done, meaningful things of substance. And so I love learning from him about influence. He'd come in and he'd say, Calvin, what's power? You know what I believe power is? He said, power is the ability to get others to do what they would not have done had you not asked them to. And there is power in every seat. There's power in your seat right now. There's a page. You're in my office. Everybody has power in their seat. He leans back. There's power in my seat. I'm going to use it. There's people who have the same seat in the office next to me and don't use the power in their seat because they're afraid if they use it, they will lose it. And it's the opposite. You have a responsibility to use your power and to use it for good. And so I took that to heart. I really believe that. And that's why I believe that in each seat, whether you're an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, a page, an intern, a teacher, everybody has power in their seat. So I could envision myself in any seat using that influence to advance something that the universe is asking me to.
Do you feel that moment was foundational to where you're at now?
Yeah, it's part of the journey. It's one thing that stands out. There are moments in your life that really help set the course, things that really stand out that you will remember and never forget. And so it resonated with things I already believed, but really compounded and accelerated, opened my mind in other ways. And so it's one of those moments that stands out. I've often looked back on that moment and thinking, I am in a seat right now of a responsibility to use my voice for good. And I did that as an associate at a VC firm. Thought about that and made investments.
We talked a lot about philosophy. How do you take those philosophies and apply them to the challenges that you've faced?
It's a real simple saying, the obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the way. And as you think about last year and all the challenges that we had, whether it was the pandemic, civil unrest, dealing with racism and confronting it, all these things are the universe saying, I have a problem and we can solve it. And by confronting challenges and not looking at it as just an obstacle and looking at it as the way, the whole world opens up to you. When we went in the shutdown, we thought about, okay, don't have any meetings going on. So this might seem like an obstacle, but it's actually the way. We can put our heads down and launch what we love. Let's bring renter ownership into the market. On the other side of this, we will turn renters into owners and then expand from there. Right now, as people think about shutting down and distributed work, we've learned a new way of doing business, one that's more harmonious. Perhaps we don't go back to the old way. Perhaps we use these obstacles to teach us the new way forward. And it's the same advice that you asked me earlier about what do you say to somebody who's struggling with making a big change in their life? It's like, well, the thing that's frustrating you, solving that problem is the way. And I think if you approach everything in business with that lens, then you will figure it out.
So thinking back to original talk in 2015 all the way to till now, you've applied the philosophies and you've tackled these challenges. What would be the singular thing that you would pull out of the last almost 6 years that you would want to share, that singular piece of advice?
Follow the love and just love and light. It's a journey and it's a practice and it's one as old as time. So my one piece of advice is follow the love.
With that philosophy, have you run into any challenges?
I think the hardest part of that philosophy is living up to it. Finding time to meditate every day. We're human. We're all on our hero's journey. And so I think the hardest part about that philosophy, when you understand Aristotelian ethics, virtue ethics, is to do it. It is hard work. It is a daily practice. That in and of itself is the journey. And if you do that work on your core, then everything else is easy.
Thank you so much, Calvin, for taking the time to interview us. Any last thoughts that you would like to add before we wrap up?
Absolutely. It's a big vision. We believe democracy is stronger when everyone has ownership. And over the next 10 years, we're going to empower 10 million new investors to own $10 billion worth of real estate equity. By doing that, we're going to change wealth creation in this country. And so I just want people who believe what we believe to join our wait list, go to rove.com and share with a friend. We need your help because maybe it doesn't have to take 10 years.
Thanks again, Calvin, for taking the time to interview with us.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you.
If you'd like to find out more about Rove, you can find them on the web at rove.com, RHOVE.com. Thank you.